Bear Down Bears fans, on today's episode, we're going to talk about the biggest pros and cons of Shane Waldron becoming the Chicago Bears head coach, and it starts right now. Now, if you are new to the channel, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talk Chicago sports, how Chicago talk. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. So Shane Waldron is now the OC of the Chicago Bears, and there's some interesting pros and cons that I think come with him after talking to some people who have been very well connected in Seattle, who have seen him up close, of course, talking with different beat writers and things like that. And the conversation that you get with Shane Waldron coming to Chicago. And I want to start with the positive. Y'all know me. I'm a very positive, very optimistic Chicago fan. It's probably why I get shot in the foot so many times here in this city, but I'm very optimistic when it comes to my teams. And I try to look for the best in the hires. The number one thing that I've heard about Shane Waldron is there's not anybody better when it comes to building a connection with young quarterbacks and being able to go out there and actually develop those guys. And I think that this is very, very interesting when you talk about the Chicago Bears future, because for me, everybody has sat here and they've talked about, we want this offense, we want to lead offense, we want the offense, 5,000 yard passing and 2,000 yards rushing and a dominant offense in the NFL. But we still haven't gotten the part where we develop players consistently the right way. And so hearing the fact that Shane Waldron does work really well with his guys, works well with the guys in the locker room, vibes well with the guys in the locker room really well, and on top of that is one of the guys who has been described as being a quarterback's best friend. And what I mean by that is he'll get the quarterback to not only believe in the system that Shane is trying to run, but he'll also get the quarterback to believe in himself while believing in that system, having that trust in the quarterback to go out there and make the plays that he knows that he can make. I think that's something that bodes well for both sides of the Caleb Williams and or Justin Fields debate, because no matter what, you got to start being able to build confidence in the guys you have here, develop the guys that you have here, and start to get them moving in the right direction from the coaching aspect. A lot of times there's a ton of talent here that we see come through Chicago, but you don't see trust instilled in these guys. You don't see faith put in these guys. And then all of a sudden they're kind of like, well, should I make this play? Shouldn't I make this play? Should I make this throw? Shouldn't I make this throw? Because these could be throws that cost me my job. From everything that I'm hearing, Shane Waldron is not that kind of guy. And it really does excite me that we could see him come into the building and be somebody who can instill that promise in a quarterback, no matter who the quarterback is. The other thing for me that really stands out is the staff that Shane Waldron could bring with him offensively. We always hear about, right, the schemes he's going to be able to draw up, the passing styles he's going to be able to draw up, right, the creating open routes and things like that. But you still got to have guys that can catch the football to do that. Right now, it feels like we got DJ Moore, Cole Kmet for sure. But outside of that, there's a lot of question marks on this. And this is why a guy who has been connected with the Chicago Bears, possibly coming over with Shane Waldron, in Sanjay Lay, I think that he could also be a really good asset to bring in, because Waldron now going to be building out this staff. You got some people still here with Simo in the building for the offensive line and things like that. But when you look at Sanjay Lay and what he's been able to do with the wide receiver room that has happened in Seattle with Jackson Smith and Jigba coming back and being an asset to DK Metcalf. He was somebody who worked with DK, in fact, before going down to Jacksonville, where tough stint down in Jacksonville, craziness down there, Urban Meyer down in Jacksonville. You would think that there's probably some, I mean, you got to give a guy a pass that had to work with Urban Meyer for a year, but really good wide receivers coach. And so again, continuing that development throughout the entire process with Simo already in place for the offensive line. Love what he's been able to do with Darnell Wright. It really feels like he's going to be able to build out a really, really good staff here in Chicago that's also going to be able to help him outside of just the quarterback position, because the quarterback is the name that we focus on, but it's also about the other guys on the team. We need development from Tyler Scott. Heck, Velus Jones is still here. Looks like he's still going to be here. We need development from Velus Jones. We need development, if you do end up holding on to him, from Darnell Mooney, and more of a utilization of Darnell Mooney in this offense. So I think that you're going to have an opportunity here to see multiple players at multiple positions be developed in the best way. If the Bears do stick with Justin, you're adding Marvin Harrison Jr. into that. I don't care what anybody says. You go out and you get MHJ. If they don't end up sticking with Justin, right now you've got a young quarterback in there. You got to probably sit there and go with a Rome Odunze, and really just try and develop these younger wide receivers into being the guy opposite of DJ Moore, who can take some of the pressure off of him. Because one of the main things we were missing last season was a guy who could really take the pressure off of DJ Moore. I think another positive that really stands out from my time talking with guys over in Seattle who've been really close and have looked at the situation close is the fact that while the play calling at times could be called into question, it felt like he was still a really good play design type of guy. He was still a guy who was going to go out there and be able to get you, okay, we're missing tackles on this. We're running a lot of 13 personnel, 12 man, right? We're not going to put ourselves in bad positions. I think 2022 was a lot better than 2023 ended up being. Of course, you see the offense look better, but there's a lot different situation, ton more injuries this season when you look at 2023. And I'm excited still that Shane Waldron is the Chicago Bears OC of choice. I think that especially when you look at the quarterback position, when you look at the play design position, you do feel really good about what you have there. Now come the cons. I do want to know how you guys feel about the hire of Shane Waldron. What are your pros and cons that you've heard or that you've seen with him? Let me know down in the comments below. The cons are going to be very interesting here because Bears fans, cover your ears. He has been described to me, and I will just kind of brush the surface on this. Tune in the Chicago Bears podcast later today where we go a lot more in depth. We've got a really good guest on there. I'll save it for when the show does drop, but a beat reporter who has been all over the Shane Waldron hire here in Chicago from Seattle. So tune in with us over there as well. He goes a lot more in depth than I'm going to be able to go here, but he's been described as inconsistent. He's been described as last season seemed like he really struggled with going out there and being able to adjust. He's been described as a guy who is unbalanced in his pass to rush ratio, and he's been described as a guy who did not use the number one wide receiver on the team early in the season enough. Later on in the season, DK Metcalf did end up averaging about 80 yards per game. But early on in the season, seemed like he really was not a part of that offense. Some of that, of course, on Geno as well. But guys, it sounds a lot like Luke Getsy on some of the cons. I'm not going to lie. It kind of sucks. And that's the concern coming in here. And yes, there are a ton of positives that I think speak to what the Chicago Bears need to have happen here. But a lot of the issues that popped up when you talk about lack of adjustment, lack of creativity at times last season. Again, it seems like it's a tale of two seasons. I would question whether Pete Carroll had some meddling in there because early on in the season, a lot of stuff just looked disjointed, looked like they took a complete step back. It wasn't very exciting. Later on in the season, you started to see that offense kind of get itself back on track. But the biggest concerns for me are the complete lack of a running game. Like I've said, he basically is somebody who very much Matt Nagy will give up on the running game very quickly if it does not work. And so I do have concerns on what are we going to do to utilize our running backs here. Now, for me, I'm big on him utilizing them in the right situations. And what I've heard on the situational side of things, yet again, inconsistent. A guy who, yeah, listen, he's going to be able to run the football, but is he going to stick with that run? Is he going to go for that run on 3rd and 1? Now, what I have heard is he's not going to do any of the dumb stuff, right? He's not going to do, he wasn't doing Tyler Lockett end arounds on 3rd and 1 to try and punch it into the end zone. But what we could see is some of the similar inconsistencies that we saw here in Chicago last season, where second half adjustments weren't being exploited. You weren't seeing him, you weren't seeing Shane Waldron basically go out there and put players consistently where it felt like they were going to work best. And on top of that, at times last season, there was just a disconnect between what the offense was doing and how poorly the defense was playing as well. You also have to take that into account, but a disconnect in what the offense was doing and how they were going out there on a consistent basis and being able to continually punch teams in the mouth. There's some of those games where you look at it and you're just like, this guy dominates, he kills. I love this. I love the play design when he was missing pieces on the team. There was a ton of injury on that Seattle team this year, especially on that offensive line. And I thought that he did a really good job navigating that on the play calling side, but the insiders have kind of let me know that, listen, yes, while those were good things that he was able to do, right, there were moments where the team was fully healthy and we didn't see that same level of creativity. So it does give me some pause. It does give me a little bit of concern to see what he's going to be here in Chicago. I'm excited still that Shane Waldron is the OC for the Chicago Bears, especially from the fact of the development standpoint. But I am going to be intrigued to see what he has learned. Remember, Shane Waldron's still a relatively new play caller. He's 3 years in to this thing. So he's got play calling experience. He's got experience helping develop quarterbacks with Geno Smith getting back on track. But I don't think we went out and got a top 10 play caller. I believe that we went out and maybe got a top 15, and he's 15, right, type of play caller. And you hope that he continues to develop. You hope he continues to grow. You hope he continues to go out there and put his skill sets on display, very much like we hope for Justin Fields, for DJ Moore, for all of the players that we have in this system, right? Like I think that there's a lot here where you're going to see, okay, what kind of steps does a year 4 play caller take in this versus, you know, we've kind of seen the same things from Luke Getsy for a couple of years now, and this has been a major issue. I do want to see, you know, initially how he's going to adjust to the mindset of I'm not running the football, especially with the running back room that we have here. You've got Roschon Johnson. He's a guy that can go out there and make plays. Guess what? They got Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker's a good running back out there, and there was just an underutilization of him. Is he going to change his mindset on that? Will he commit to the run? Those are some of the biggest questions that I think you do have to bring up when you talk about Shane Waldron. Listen, it's not all roses and sunshines. I do think, personally, to me, you went out and you got the best offensive coordinator available to you. I think I'd rather have a Shane Waldron than a Clint Kubiak. I believe that I'd rather have a Shane Waldron. Man, Cliff Kingsbury for me. Cliff Kingsbury is my number one. I can't cap on that. Cliff Kingsbury was number one for me. So I would have rather had Cliff Kingsbury than Shane Waldron. But I mean, you got one of the top 2 guys that I believe were out there offensively. Other teams were looking to get him. Other teams were coveting him. And it just seems that, you know, you got a guy that, could he have come back in Seattle and been fine? Sure. But now that he's moved on, can you get the most out of him? And the one thing that I have heard about Shane Waldron as well, I guess is more on the pro side, he's going to get the most out of his quarterback. No matter what the skill set of the QB is, no matter what the quarterback's able to do, he's going to get the most out of that guy. So again, that excites me. If you feel like you have a quarterback here that getting the most out of is generational, then we might be in a good situation. If you feel like you have a quarterback here who getting the most out of is Geno Smith, then you never know, right, man? We get 9 wins a year, basically. But we'll see what it ends up being. We'll see how this all ends up playing out. I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well. As always, it's your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bears content. Click the links on the screen. Check the links in the description below. And tune in with us tonight for the Daily Show as well. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear done. Peace.